Hi, welcome to Think Tech. We are raising public awareness about technology, energy, globalism, and diversification. This show is Center Stage. I am your host, Donna Blanchard, very proud managing director of Kumu Kahua Theater. We are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumu Kahua Theater. I'm very excited to be back today. I hope I remember how to host a show. I think I'll get there. My guest today is Jim Davenport, who is a scenic designer and technical director at Kumu Kahua Theater for our upcoming show, My Name is Gary Cooper by Victor Roger. We're going to talk all about that and about Jim's diverse background. First, I want to let you know that we broadcast every day on the internet, every weekday on thinktechhawaii.com. We also live stream on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. And if you would like to check out any of our archived shows, you can find them on YouTube and also on thinktechhawaii.com. And now, Jim Davenport is an actor, designer, and lecturer in theater at Victoria University in New Zealand. He is the technical director and set designer for My Name is Gary Cooper by Victor Roger, which runs at Kumu Kahua Theater from January 22nd through February 22nd. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Donna. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you here. I'm glad to, it's always a pleasure for me when I can sit down, when I can watch someone at work and see the amount of talent and skill that they have, and then have them as my captive audience. For 45 minutes, you have to talk with me.
Right.
And that's a privilege of mine. So if we can, let's start with talking about Gary Cooper, and you're the reason the show is in Hawaii.
Well, partly. About 2 years ago, I asked my colleague David O'Donnell, who's directing Gary Cooper, My Name is Gary Cooper, what show he would like to direct in Hawaii. And he said, My Name is Gary Cooper by Victor Rogers. And I said, okay, that's great. David's area of research is drama in the Pacific, so I thought that would be a good match with Kumu Kahua. So I was here over our summer break in New Zealand, designing a show at Manoa Valley Theater. Mm-hmm. And I was volunteering for the production at Kumu last year.
Mo'i.
Yeah, Mo'i, helping with the set. And I ran into Harry and I asked Harry if he thought that a collaboration between Victoria University, David and I, and Kumu and you and everybody at Kumu sounded like a good project. And he said yes, so I gave him the script of My Name is Gary Cooper, which he then gave to the board members, and they all loved it. So here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what a script!
Mm.
I mean, it's so well written.
Yes.
Well, Albee-esque is what I like to call it. I really think it is. Vic, I don't know how many scripts Victor has written. I get the impression that he's written maybe a handful, but he writes as though he's someone who's much further along in his playwriting career.
Yeah, he's considered one of New Zealand's top playwrights presently, and he produced some of his plays are Sons and Black Faggot, which is now in London, was picked up in London and made its way through Edinburgh and was quite a hit there. It was also in the Arts Festival at Wellington, which is a major arts festival that happens every 2 years. But My Name is Gary Cooper is, like you said, a beautifully written play. There's just no fat on it, and it's very funny and very tragic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
it's beautifully tragic.
Yes. Yeah. And you play Connie, who is the.
It's basically a show about her, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yes, watching rehearsals and the scenes with you in it, I definitely think that's probably true. With the martini in the hand.
Yes,
yeah.
at all times.
Yeah, but it's a great play.
Yeah.
And when I read it, I was really excited about working on it because it was just so complete and yeah, just really fantastic script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote a little promo piece for it today, and I said that it's so full of humor, heart, and heat that it'll make your head spin.
Oh,
and
nice.
it really, yeah, it
That's a
really
nice turn
is
of
all
phrase.
of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about, before we get into your technical work, let's talk a little bit about the script so we lay some background for that.
Right.
You want to give your synopsis of it? I'd like to hear that.
Well, it's, I guess, what would you call a revenge tragedy?
Mm.
I don't want to give the plot away, but I guess it's a look at how it's based, Victor based, well, used the movie that was shot in 1953 on Samoa, Return to Paradise with Gary Cooper. He used that as his provocation for a way into writing the script. And he was, I believe, looking at how Hollywood and the West depicts Pacific culture and the Pacific peoples of the Pacific, and looking at that glamification of that, and yeah, I think so. So Victor, using that movie as a starting point, evidently he met another Samoan from Samoa who was named Gary Cooper, who's named that because the movie was there, and evidently there were quite a few boys that were named Gary Cooper after the shooting of that. Yeah, I think it's looking in a roundabout way. The play doesn't directly deal with the shooting of Return to Paradise, but it's kind of the story of someone who it's a story of events that happen that shift and change a lot of people's lives and impact them in a pretty negative way. And it's kind of looking at that. And Gary Cooper in the play is a young man who is half Samoan and half European. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
White.
I think yes. So I don't know if I answered your question.
That's good. No, that's a good place to
There's
start.
more than that, yeah.
And the play takes place in Samoa in the
Yes.
50s, and in LA in the 70s.
That's right, yeah.
And in
Auckland.
In Auckland,
Present
day.
Yeah.
So this is what you had to work with, what you had to bring to life on our stage,
Yes.
on our rather small, exceptionally intimate stage.
Yes, exceptionally.
Yeah.
The first production and the only other production of My Name is Gary Cooper was the premiere in Auckland in 2007. There was one staged reading in New York after that, I believe. But other than that, there's been no other production. So the original production, because there's past, present, and future that the play deals with, and they kind of interweave and mesh together. The scenic design for the Auckland production was more towards slick Los Angeles home in the 70s, with some suggestion with a blue cyc that I guess was to represent Pacific skies loosely. But our take on it was that my idea was the whole play is that Gary comes to Los Angeles looking for something. I won't give that away. But that I wanted the set to be an expression of Gary's unconscious. It was his unconscious kind of exploding, and instead of going towards a Western style apartment or house, which there are elements of that. I think we geared it more towards creating a space that was both Los Angeles in the 70s, but leaning more towards an organic Pacific Island kind of feel. Yeah, incorporating Samoan tattoo and yeah, but loosely, not real literally. Yeah.
And film.
Yes,
a lot of film.
And film.
We can give that away. I think we can give that away. There is a lot of film.
There is.
Literally.
Yes, there is a lot of film.
On our stage.
Yes, miles of it probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I have no experience, I had to take a couple of classes in scenic design, but I've worked on a lot of sets, and it is sort of mind-boggling to me how you say, here's, and particularly at a theater like Kumu Kahua, where you have sort of the luxury and the curse of you move the risers and the seats for the audience wherever you want them also. So you have a lot of decisions to make.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to create these 3 different distinct places, and then distinct places, these 3 distinct times and locales, and then distinct places within each of them.
Yes.
Where does your mind even begin? How do you start that process?
Well, I think this, in a space like Kumu, instead of trying to create 3 separate literal different spaces and times, Samoa in the 50s, Los Angeles in the 70s, and present-day Auckland at a movie theater, and outside of a movie theater, to create more of a unit set that was everywhere and nowhere, that is suggestive of all of them. Kumu's tricky because it's so intimate, and so trying to create that some theater magic is a little more difficult because of the proximity of the audience. But with this play, there is the time interweaving and overlap, and there's liminal spaces where one character is looking at another character that's either in the past or in the future, in the same space, and how to do that so it's clear to the audience. Yeah, so for this specific design, David and I started discussing it quite a while ago, and discussing configuration of the space. There are some projections in it, so that dictated how the configuration was set up. So usually as a designer, you start with, well, it depends. Sometimes I start with an aesthetic or a feeling through doing research, and that leads you in a certain way. But it always comes back to the logistics and the pragmatics of what actually has to happen, like projections, for instance, dictating kind of the configuration. And then the aesthetics kind of come into it, and then an overall unity, trying to connect all the different times and worlds together in a way, hopefully, that is clear to the audience, but not so deliberate that you're stuck.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there is a lot of opportunity for, well, there's a lot of willing suspension of disbelief, but there's also a lot of room for play.
Yes.
Now this is okay, we're going to take a quick break, and then I want to come back to exactly this a little bit more. We'll be right back. Stay put. This is Center Stage on ThinkTechHawaii.com. We'll be right back.
Okay, I'm Jay Fidel. That's Ray Starling. We co-host a show called Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. It's really interesting. You know, Ray has a way of unzipping these guys. He asks them these questions, and all this stuff tumbles out, and we find out stuff we would never know about without Ray's questions. Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome, Jay. I'm very pleased to be your Ed McMahon every Wednesday at 4 o'clock here on the internet. So you can join us and see what's happening in the energy world, and there is a lot going on. So join us every Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, come around, be energized, right here on Think Tech. Aloha.
Hi, we're back. We're live. This is Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series. And I want to let you know that if you would ever like to come down and join us in our studio audience during a show, you may. Just send an email to j@thinktechhawaii.com. I'm talking with set designer, actor, lecturer, Jim Davenport, who is the technical director and set designer for, my name is Gary Cooper at Kumu Kahua Theater. Okay, let's go back if we could. You just said during the break that I said, oh, so you're talking about form following function, but you said that's not always how it happens sometimes.
Well, no, well, I guess it should. But I think for me that really the interesting thing is it is part of the mechanics of figuring out what needs to happen in a production. I mean, it's all kind of part and parcel of it. But the aesthetics and figuring out how visually there's enough information, but not too much. There's clues that the things that audience need to understand what's happening in the play are there. Yeah, but the aesthetics can be what's exciting, and also working with different materials. For instance, film.
That's interesting, because what did I read somewhere? Your field of research is in developing sustainable, regenerative, scenographic design and teaching methodologies. Well, I'd never even thought about that before, but yes, good for you. We should do that, right?
Well, yeah, it's the entertainment industry is quite wasteful, so part of what I'm doing at Victoria is looking at alternative ways of creating scenography that's more sustainable. I did a project about 1.5 years ago where I grew scenic flats, curved scenic flats out of mushrooms. Yeah, so the
little mushroom heads.
Well, no, the root structure of mushrooms is mycelium, and it creates a mass that's very similar to styrofoam when it's dried. Oh. And there are companies that are now producing that to substitute packing material, which is a huge waste because polystyrene is, of course, a major problem. Yeah. So there's companies that are developing this for packing installation and quite a few other applications, and they're making money, so it's becoming economically viable. So I kind of used some of the technology that they're using and developing and growing some set flats. Yeah, out of mushrooms. It's good. It's light. You can carve it like foam. It's fire retardant. It grows, if you have the right conditions, in about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It's very fast. Yeah, so there's a lot of benefits. And I did some research in Wellington is where Weta Workshops is, where Peter Jackson shoots The Hobbit and a lot of films. And yeah, they use up to I believe it was 4 tons of polystyrene a week. Yeah, and a lot of that ends up in the landfill. So yeah, just exploring alternative ways of creating sets, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, there's a lot of recycling that has always gone on in theaters, in community theaters certainly, because we just can't afford to go out and buy polystyrene every time we need it.
Just let me add one thing. Oh. It's not only sustainable and recycling, but it's regenerative, because with the mushroom mycelium flats, is you can just chop it up and then put it into the compost, and it creates fuel because it's actually food.
because it's
Yeah.
it's going through its own biological
That's right.
process.
Yeah, and it has a lot of nutrients in it, and so you put it into community gardens and stuff. It's
Nice.
very hippie.
You feel really good about your hippie self.
Yeah, it's a very hippie approach too. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So for our set, we said there's a lot of film on it. There's literally a lot of old archival film that's on there.
Yeah. So looking at the film thematically, the film Return to Paradise and the framing of Pacific cultures by Hollywood, David and I discussed that an obvious, perhaps, and hopefully not too obvious, visual metaphor for that would be film itself. The negative is what we thought was really an interesting visual concept for the play. So the negative is it's inversion. So black is white and white is black. In this play, there's a bit of that.
Yeah.
So that and the frame. So if you frame something, right, and it's a negative, obviously a negative is right. It says a lot in itself. So yeah, film became the medium that we wanted to explore. I found a roll of undeveloped 35 millimeter film that I had, and I took it out and I started playing with it. And I don't know if you know, there's an artist, a New Zealand artist, famous New Zealand artist, probably one of New Zealand's most famous artists, Len Lai, who created these really beautiful kinetic sculptures, as well as experimented with film, and he did the scratching technique on film. So you would have a whole film that was scratched frame to frame, that moved and shaped, and so so using that, I started playing with the film and looked at the different layers on it and scratching it through it, and that became the base of the design. There was a lot of old films, damaged films at Victoria University that we had access to, and so I brought those over with me when I came, and that's part of the set.
Oh. I did not even realize the negative aspect of it, and you're right, there is some reversal of black and white roles within the show.
It's subverted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. So how did you, can we talk a little bit about your background?
Sure.
You grew up here.
Yep.
Where you grad?
Kalaheo, 79.
Excellent. And did you have a theater program at school?
There was a theater program, but I wasn't part of it.
Oh.
No, I was surfing.
Well, oh, okay, that was your bag. Did you go to college right out of high school, or did you just go to the beach?
No, I didn't go, well, I did go to the beach, but no, I didn't go to college straight out. I went to England for about a year, and then when I came back, I worked at All Pool and Spa in Kailua, and then started my university education at Windward Community College.
Oh, studying what?
Well, it was kind of an undergraduate, but that's where I started taking theater courses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Had you been a theater goer when you were younger?
Yes, my father was a designer, graphic designer in Hawaii here, and he had friends that were in the opera, Camille Almy and some other people, and so he used to take my brother and I to the operas. So I had my first introduction to theater through Hawaii Opera, and when I was in England, my mother took me to Stratford upon Avon, and I saw Richard III, and I was in the first row, and I was pretty impressed with that.
Oh,
so,
my goodness.
Yeah, I think that was the one where I really got kind of.
You said, I want to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. At what age did you say? you
I
say?
was 18.
Oh,
That
okay.
experience was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
Right out of high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you studied acting first.
Yeah, I took acting courses at Windward with Walter McGoldrick. Walter was great, and the first role that I got was Heaven Can Wait, playing Joe Pendleton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just jumped right in. Yeah, I'm going to play Joe Pendleton.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that was good fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And Walter was great. He was a lovely man. And yeah, so I did my 2 years at Windward and then transferred to University of Hawaii at Manoa, and then changed my major. I didn't get a theater degree. I went with liberal studies, I think was what it was called then, where you could create your own degree. So it was multimedia production and performance.
Oh, okay.
But I was acting at that time.
And that was, were you digging set design? Were you thinking about that then at all?
No, not at that point. I'd always done creative works when I was younger, but I was pretty focused on acting. That came a little later.
Oh, okay.
But after I graduated, I auditioned for Honolulu Theater for Youth, and I was hired by them as a company actor with Kyle Kukuno, Polly Ku'ule Sommerfeld, Ned Van Zandt.
Okay.
Who am I forgetting? Yeah, anyway, and I did that for, I think it was almost 5 years. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
And during that time, I created some masks. I played the reluctant dragon, and I created the mask for that. So I was interested in that, started to go in that direction.
Oh.
During my undergraduate, though, I'm sorry, that's not completely true. Is I did take Joe Dodd's scenic design classes in undergraduate, and I really did like it, but I didn't think seriously about that until later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you enjoyed it.
I did.
You know, Joe just retired.
Yes.
This past year.
And Joe was my mentor. Yeah, Joe was Joe. Hi, Joe, if you're out there.
He's inspired a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yes, he certainly has.
Yeah, I had to take those classes in college back in Ohio, and
Mm-hmm.
I got by, you know, I could do it, but it didn't speak to me at all. So, yeah, something in there was speaking to you already. Now, the mask work, that's interesting. Did you have classes on mask work at Windward or at Manoa?
No.
Really?
No, yeah, I did a show at Leeward with Paul Cravath, Springs Awakening, and I designed masks for that. I'm not too sure. That's a good question. I'm really uncertain where the mask thing came from. I think I've always been tactile and interested in three-dimensional space and form, and so the masks seemed right in there with that. Yeah.
We got to go to another break, but
Okay.
when we come back, I want to go back to that because both the scenic design and mask work, you're talking about as the designer, as the creator, you're working from the outside of this. You know, the actors, the other side, they seem like very different worlds.
Yep.
So we'll come back and talk more about that after the break. Stay put. See you soon.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevelin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at Think Tech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday. Aloha.
Hi, this is Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Series. I'm your host, Donna Blanchard, very proud managing director of Kumu Kahua Theater. We are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumu Kahua Theater. I am talking with Jim Davenport, who is the technical director for the show My Name is Gary Cooper by Victor Roger, which is running at Kumu Kahua Theater from January 22nd through February 22nd, 2015. So hi, we're back.
Hello.
And I'm interested in, I don't even know if you can put words to this. It seems I've done mask work before.
Yeah.
And all I think about is from the inside of the mask.
Mm.
So can you, if you hadn't even had a class in it, you started developing masks saying, oh, this is what you need, this is what I can bring to life?
Yeah, I think as a, like you were talking about, as a performer, the mask is pretty powerful, and there's something happens when you put on a mask.
Yeah.
And as I was saying, the form of it really interested me, and so that was a good marriage between the two. Scenic design I really enjoyed, but the mask seemed so human and a good fit. So, you know, I didn't take any traditional classes. I just started making them on my own out of paper mache and natural materials. Then I found some higher tech stuff called Veriform, which is a thermoplastic that you can put in hot water, and it molds, and once it cools, it hardens. So it's very quick in its reaction time, and so it can be quite spontaneous and allow you to work in a spontaneous way. Instead of waiting for something to dry overnight, this it's just a matter of literally seconds to minutes, and then so you can form, and then I got interested in how different materials act and how they, when you work with them, they can inform how you work with it, and therefore kind of the character, or yeah. So following what the materials kind of lead you, how they work, and how they want to be, I guess, manipulated or worked with, I guess is the word.
Okay, so now where are we in your life when you're doing the mask work? Where have we gotten?
Well, so at Honolulu Theater for Youth, I did some mask work, and then I moved to the mainland, to Seattle, and did a mask show for ACT, but it's a different ACT.
Oh.
Yeah. And I worked with Seattle rep. I didn't design the masks for the ACT show. I worked with the designer, costume designer who designed them, Connie. I'm sorry, it's been a while. And so I helped her build these masks, and did have some creative input in that. I then moved to San Francisco and worked in theater. I was in Equus, and you know, there's the horse thing. I didn't design those, but I was in the show as a performer. And during that time, I started just making masks at home, quite fervently.
Oh.
Yeah, I just started making a lot of masks, using different materials. And that really kind of led me. I then came back to Hawaii and did a show at Kumu Kahua, Way of a God, that Harry Wong directed. And at that time, my real close friend, Gene Schaffner, who was managing director of Kumu Kahua for years, and who I went to school with and have known for ages, was getting his MFA at University of Hawaii. And I worked with him on a project, the class project. And it was at that time that I was in the workshop, and I was doing this kind of tribalistic painting. And Joe Dodd came by and said, "Jim, where have you been all these years? And oh, have you ever thought about coming back and getting your master's?" And I hadn't.
But you
until
did
he
then.
said that.
And you said, oh.
Yeah, and I said, yeah. And so then I got a GA-ship, which was great.
I don't know what that is.
That's a graduate assistantship,
Oh.
which is you work in the scene shop. It allows you to get your MFA. It's pretty much a full scholarship.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they pay for the tuition, and then you also get a wage from working in the scene shop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So from there, now you're, you've got that. How did you end up in New Zealand?
So I've been in New Zealand since 2006. Yeah, I went there for the job, and I've been there since, and it's been fantastic. David and I have known each other now since I arrived in New Zealand, and we've collaborated many times with the director and designer relationship in student productions. He's fantastic. David's a well-regarded director in New Zealand and a fantastic educator. So yeah, it's been a real pleasure working at Victoria. When I first got there, the position was it was just a technical general staff position, and since then I've been made academic staff, meaning that
You're a lecturer.
I'm a
as well.
lecturer, yeah, and there wasn't scenography courses before I came, and with the theater program, I introduced a stream of the study of scenography in the university, and the courses have been made permanent, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
And
that's
you
how
were a
that's-
part of making that happen.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of work, but it was good.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, we have a handful of minutes left here, and I would like to talk about your work as, I want everyone to come see My Name is Gary Cooper, that runs January 22nd through February 22nd at Kumu Kahua Theater.
Mm.
But I also want to talk about your work as, your life has been theater and
Ye-
designing from different aspects for quite a while.
Yes.
What would you do if you couldn't be involved in theater?
Well, when I was well, I've done a lot of other things, as most theater practitioners do. Yeah. Waiter, busboy, valet, doorman, bellhop, yeah. Yeah, pool cleaner, yeah. Yeah, so my resume is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I've been a theater for a long time. Yep. Pretty much my whole adult life in one aspect or another.
Why?
That's a good question. I mean, if it's changed, the reason, I think, when I was an actor, I think it was for different reasons. The design part of it, yeah, it grew. Things change, and you kind of grow into new facets of what you're interested in. But I think theater is...
No. I'm not going to let you get away with that. When you were an actor, you said it was for different reasons. We'll get where you're going eventually, but you're going to break that down a little bit. When you were an actor,
Yeah.
you did it because?
Well, I think that acting's a tricky one. There's obviously a craft to it. It's a very difficult profession. It's a craft. I think a lot of people who are drawn to the limelight or being an actor are interested in recognition. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. I think when there comes a time where it no longer fulfills part of that, then you have to ask yourself why it is you're doing what you're doing. And if it's for reasons that no longer make sense, or does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that, not to say that I'm not interested in performing, I am still interested in, and I perform now and then, but I think that my interests grew more into a visual, yeah, I think they broadened in that respect. Well, not to say that acting is not broad, but
No, I get you.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've been on the stage, and my reasons for being there and enjoying it are very different than they were
Right.
10 and 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, because, yeah.
I'm a different person, you know.
Mm.
So the scenic work, what do you feel is really at the heart of that for you?
Well, I think that's changing as well. I think that the collaborative part of theater is I'm kind of getting now. I think that for a long time I worked in a kind of a bubble, I think. So the scenic thing it's really a fantastic and wonderful experience to see something that you've designed from a concept all the way to the finished product, and see the realization of that is really quite marvelous, especially in a big scale, or even, I mean, at Kumu, just to see that your vision realized is quite rewarding. But I think now more what I'm driven or going more towards is that collaborative kind of give and take. I'm interested, becoming more interested in that, which is exciting. But I've struggled a little bit with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were in a bubble for a while. That has
Well,
something
I
to
mean,
do with it.
it's weird. It's like a dichotomy. It's like if you're designing something, like designing something from a committee is very difficult because everyone's coming from it from a different angle. And so that can be chaotic. And so I do think that sole vision or a collaborative vision, but it has to come from a certain spot. So, but then working against that is the collaborative nature of theater. So sometimes they don't align. And so sometimes, and I think because of economics makes it even worse because you're always working to a deadline. You need things quick, and so the time that it takes to create collaboratively, it takes a lot more time.
Yeah. It does. So
Yeah.
much more comes out of it. I can tell you that we are collaborating with you and your set every night in rehearsals.
That's because it hasn't been finished, and
Well,
you guys are probably bumping into
but
sharp
we
objects.
bump into things occasionally.
Yes.
But you've designed a set that and an audience structure that is opposing L's, and it would be easier to walk into a regular, proscenium setting and have a real downstage left and upstage right. We don't have that.
No.
We had to define in that space, what are we going to call downstage in this space?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But from that, so many amazing, and we're dealing with film that sometimes is still on you while you're walking out onto the set. So we're collaborating with you every night.
Yeah.
And amazing
Yeah.
things are coming out of it
Yeah.
because it is
I-
forcing us.
I'm
do
I'm
things.
really excited about the production, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, the rehearsals I've seen have been really exciting. The script is great. I'm hoping the set's going to work.
Well, yeah, it's by
on wood.
working, yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to work.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
And I'm hoping that
doing
we
my
do
best.
all of it justice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, it'll be good. Yeah. No, it's going to be great, and it's an exciting show. So.
What other projects are you working on while you're here? Got a couple more minutes.
Yeah, well, David and I, and in collaboration with Tammy Baker at the university, Kumu Tammy Baker
yeah.
at the university, are doing a symposium on
The
January
26th.
26th, right? Monday the 26th.
Yeah.
I believe it's going to be in the Lab Theater at the University of Hawaii, and that's there's some people coming from internationally to come to that. That's exciting, and it'll be primarily, and Victor Rogers, the playwright,
And
will
he'll
be
be
coming
in
as
as
well.
well.
Yeah, which is great, and it'll be discussing the play and its reception in Hawaii primarily. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah.
And I have to wrap up now.
Okay.
But this went very, very quickly. I'm happy that we were able to have this conversation,
Cool.
and I'm very grateful for your designs, and we'll see where we go with all of that.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. We will see you again next week. There's a few people that I would like to thank before we go, though. Our studio engineer, Zuri Bender, who is in my ear. Our floor manager, Sachi Slomov, who is right over there. Our communications director, Chrissy Goffigan, and Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put it all together. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.